It was the dark and stormy night of September 9, 1980. Somewhere in the heart of the Pacific Ocean, a gigantic cargo vessel battled furious waves. This was no ordinary ship. It was the MV Derbyshire, larger than the Titanic, and taller than a 16-story building. A floating steel fortress built to survive anything the ocean could unleash. Yet, within hours, it disappeared completely. No mayday call. No wreckage. Not a single clue floating on the waves. How could a ship weighing millions of tons simply vanish? For almost 2 decades, officials gave a simple explanation: it sank. But one man's search for the truth revealed something far more disturbing, a secret buried beneath the sea. On that evening, the MV Derbyshire was nearing the end of an 8-week journey. It had carried 150,000 tons of iron ore from Canada and was now heading toward Japan. It had crossed the Atlantic, past Africa's southern tip, and conquered the Indian Ocean. Now, its 42 crew members were counting the final hours before reaching home. The ship's captain, Geoffrey Underhill, was a seasoned sailor with more than 20 years at sea. His wife was already in Japan, waiting to reunite with him after months apart, a reunion that destiny would never allow. Captain Underhill had been tracking weather reports closely. He knew that a storm was brewing, Typhoon Orchid, one of the most violent typhoons that season. But he had faced such storms before. He trusted his ship, a modern marvel of British engineering. At that moment, turning back wasn't an option. The captain ordered the engines to slow and slightly adjusted the ship's direction toward the waves, a maneuver that helped ships stay stable in rough seas. He sent a radio message, warning nearby ships about the storm and sharing his location. But the weather turned worse. Waves rose to 10 meters high, crashing against the hull like mountains of water. The ship creaked under the pressure, but the crew stayed calm. After all, the Derbyshire had been built to survive the worst the ocean could offer. Yet, sometime that night, something went terribly wrong. By morning, 2 other ships that had faced the same typhoon safely reached port. But the MV Derbyshire had vanished. A vessel longer than 3 football fields and stronger than steel itself, gone without a trace. For 6 long days, no one heard a word. No distress call. No radio signal. Even the ship's owners didn't immediately sound the alarm. They believed the ship had temporarily lost contact and would soon reappear. But as days turned into a week, hope began to fade. On September 15th, a massive search operation began. Helicopters, planes, and Navy ships searched every corner of the Pacific. Yet, not a single piece of debris was ever found. 6 days later, the mission was quietly called off. Authorities claimed the vessel must have sunk in the storm. No further investigation was carried out. But the families of the crew refused to accept that answer. They believed something was being hidden. The Derbyshire wasn't an old or weak ship. It was built just 4 years earlier, in 1976, at the famous Swan Hunter shipyard in the UK. It was a new generation of vessels, bridge-class oboe carriers, capable of transporting both oil and ore. That meant it could carry oil on one trip and return with minerals on the next. It was fast, efficient, and extremely profitable. With a cargo capacity of 150,000 tons, it was designed to generate 30% more revenue than older ships. Only 6 bridge-class ships existed in the entire world. They were built quickly and cheaply to compete with Japanese and South Korean shipyards. And that rush, as it turned out, came with hidden consequences. One of the victims' fathers, Peter Ryder, refused to give up. He wasn't just a grieving parent, he was a professional ship surveyor, a man who understood how ships were built. He started his own investigation and discovered something shocking. In 1982, just 18 months after the Derbyshire vanished, another bridge-class ship, the Tyne Bridge, was caught in a North Sea storm. During the storm, its steel front structure began cracking apart. The captain ordered an emergency evacuation, and the crew was airlifted to safety. The ship narrowly escaped disaster. When Peter examined the ship, he found cracks in the same area that might have doomed the Derbyshire. He dug deeper and found that every bridge-class ship built by the same company had developed cracks in the same location. Worse, the company had quietly repaired these ships without informing the public. Peter soon discovered the real reason. The shipbuilders had made several design shortcuts to save time and money. Some steel parts were thinner than planned, and others were welded differently than the original design. Peter gathered all the evidence and submitted it to the Department of Transport. But the government refused to reopen the case. Their statement was simple: the investigation is closed. In 1984, the families united and formed the Derbyshire Family Association. Their mission: to find the truth. 2 years later, another bridge-class ship, the Kowloon Bridge, also sank after cracks developed in the same structural area. This time, the government had no choice. They reopened the investigation. For months, experts debated the cause. Some said it was bad weather. Others blamed design flaws. But the real evidence, Peter's evidence, was ignored once again. The final report declared that the Derbyshire was simply overwhelmed by a storm. No one was held accountable. Still, the families didn't stop. They believed the answers lay deep beneath the ocean. In 1994, with help from the International Transport Workers Federation, a private deep-sea mission was launched to find the wreck. After 14 years, technology had finally advanced enough to search at extreme depths. Within just 23 hours, the sonar detected something massive: the Derbyshire, resting 4 kilometers below the surface. For the next 6 years, researchers studied thousands of photos taken from the wreck site. Eventually, the truth emerged. At the very front of the ship was a compartment called the bosun's store, used for ropes, tools, and chains. During the typhoon, the weak door of that store broke open. Thousands of gallons of seawater flooded inside, making the front of the ship heavier. The bow began to dip, allowing even more water to crash in. Next, a massive wave tore open one of the cargo hatch covers. Water rushed into the iron ore containers, flooding the ship completely. Within minutes, the Derbyshire broke apart and disappeared into the Pacific's dark depths. The final report concluded that small design compromises and weak structures led to the disaster. A single minor failure had caused a chain reaction that sank one of the largest ships ever built. But the persistence of the Derbyshire families changed everything. Their fight exposed the truth about cost-cutting and negligence in the global shipping industry. Because of them, new international safety standards were created. Ship inspections became stricter, designs stronger, and rules tighter. Even today, many of the safety regulations protecting modern sailors exist because of the tragedy of the MV Derbyshire. It lies silently, 4 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, but its story continues to echo across the seas, a powerful reminder that even the strongest giants can fall when safety is sacrificed for speed. Movie camera, if you found this story mysterious and powerful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to where we uncover the hidden truths buried beneath the waves.